Good afternoon. My name is Julia Coakley, Head of Operations, and I'd like to welcome you to our MGAA webinar today, which is being delivered by Acumen Claims. Before I introduce our presenters, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping points. Please ensure your microphone and your camera is off, and if you'd like to ask a question, please use the chat button at the bottom of your screen. The questions will be answered during the Q&A session at the end. This webinar can be utilised to earn CPD points. The CII does accredit MGAA events if this is relevant to your ongoing professional development. The recording will be uploaded to the MGAA website and to the MGAA's YouTube channel post-event, and the slide deck will be issued to all those that registered post-event. Please take time to respond to our feedback survey, which will be issued after the webinar. This does enable us to deliver the best quality event to our membership, so we do appreciate you taking a couple of minutes just to complete that. And then just before we move on, please remember it's the MGAA's conference on the 29th of June, next Wednesday. So if you haven't already registered for your delegate pass, please do so. You can find the details at our website, mgaa.co.uk. So today's webinar is Property Damage Validation, a View from the Coalface, and is being delivered by Acumen's Richard Talbot, Building Surveyor, Darren Francis, Operations Director, and Chris Turner, Head of Business Development. Richard has over 10 years' experience as an Acumen Property Damage Surveyor, and is also a qualified electrician. Richard is a member of the Chartered Institute of Builders and surveys both personal lines and commercial property damage in a North Nottinghamshire region. As well as guiding policyholders through their claims, Richard designs repair scopes, and where claims are fulfilled, he project manages Acumen repair partners until works are complete. Darren joined Acumen in January 2019, having held senior leadership positions within both loss adjusting and disaster management companies. Darren is responsible for the end-to-end service delivery of both field-based surveyors and Acumen's Annesley Customer Contact Centre. The key focus is providing the customer with a seamless claim experience, as well as ensuring that the client service is technically sound. Chris joined Acumen at the beginning of 2022 and brings to the company a wealth of account management and business development experience. His career has seen Chris working on supply chain development projects alongside some of the UK's largest general insurers. Before joining Acumen, Chris also provided consultancy services for several years in our sector. So Chris, if I might hand over to you.
Yes, thanks Julia. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for the great introduction there. So in this digital world that we're in, I can't see any of you. I can just see my presentation in front of me. So hello to you, even though I can't see you. So as Julia said, the title of today's presentation is Property Damage Validation, a View from the Coalface. And that's exactly what we want it to be. There's many people who work in claims of all different types, who often are at a certain distance from the loss itself. You know, they may be underwriters, they may be supply chain managers, you know, many different sort of demarcations. And we thought it would be very interesting to look at the experience of my colleague Richard Talbot, who is a surveyor and is at the coalface, to give you some insights into what we do and also how we do it. So in terms of today's agenda, so we're going to look at learning objectives first. Then we'll go straight into case studies from Richard's perspective, which I hope you'll find really interesting. Then we'll talk about, you know, how we do what we do at Acumen Claims. So we'll look at, you know, what is an MCIOB surveyor? What do MGAs want from property valuation? And then comparing a traditional property valuation and surveying model with the Acumen model, and reviewing some benefits we believe that will deliver. Before at the end, we'll revisit the learning objectives, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. And don't forget, you can type your questions into the chat box as we're going along. I don't think I'll see them, but Julia can record them we can answer them at the end. So, learning objectives. So, by the end of the webinar, delegates should be able to list the relative features and skill sets of surveyor-led models versus traditional loss-adjusting models. And we're looking at claims in the region of 10k to 100k, which is the kind of property damage claims that Acumen mostly deal with. Summarise what Acumen means by surveyor in this context. Describe how an Acumen surveyor approaches property damage on the ground, including managing policyholder expectations and also working with other professionals. And then explain the rationale behind some of the cost and claims duration benefits we propose our surveyor-led property model delivers to MGAs, capacity and policyholders. So, going on from Julia's introduction to Richard here. So yes, Richard, my colleague, works as an MCIOB accredited surveyor in the field. He covers the Nottinghamshire and surrounding areas, and he's responsible for surveying, scope design, claims validation, and that's in alongside the Acumen desk validation team in our Annesley the office, and also the management of restoration and repair, sort of hands-on management of that. So, as I said, we're going to go straight into some case studies, so you can see what we do and how we do it. So, in the following case studies, Acumen have saved capacity £375,000. So let's find out how we did that. So what I'll do, I'll introduce each case study, and then Richard or Darren are going to make some sort of further commentary on them. So first of all, we'll look at larger commercial loss case studies. So this is the first case study. This is an impact claim that was actually in Leicester in 2022. So a vehicle has impacted an office, glass and steel office building. The insurer had received an independent quotation for £250,000. Richard went to scope the property, sense checked everything about it and realised that an isolated repair was perfectly possible. And in doing so, we were able to submit an alternate quotation that saved the insurer over £100,000. So we just hand over to Richard. Richard, how did you approach this this very recent claim?
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. So effectively, as a model, when we approach the surveys, we look to try and provide a response on a complete package. So whilst not only providing competitive quotations, we look, at the structures and also the safety perspective as well. In this particular property, as Chris alluded to, there was a drunk driver went straight through the facade of the building. So immediately, it's our responsibility to ensure, first of all, the property is safe from structurally, and then also from a security standpoint. So our initial assessment was to just get secure for hoardings to go up, so that the operation of the main reception area was still operational. So once we've done that, we then start to look, and we're satisfied the property is secure and safe. We then look towards the structure of it and how we can, implement a repair. On this particular design, I think originally there was a quotation from the original contractor provided by the insurance company to replace the entire facade of the building. I was, conscious that the costs were excessive, and as a result, I engaged with a local contractor that effectively looked into structural designs, and just we determined between us that we were able to actually carry out an isolator repair, because the mullions themselves can be dismantled separate, so that you're not having to dismantle the entire facade and replace the glazing. So yeah, it's effectively, we try and encompass everything. So from a security standpoint, a safety standpoint, and then actually look at the reinstatement and how we can go about reinstating the property. And like as Chris alluded to, the costs significantly reduced because we wasn't actually quoting for the full reinstatement. It was actually only a partial repair. So we were able to reduce the indemnity to the insurance company whilst fulfilling, the customer satisfaction.
Excellent. That's great. Thanks, Richard. We'll move on to our second case study now. So this was a fire claim. It was in the Nottinghamshire area. So it's a warehouse used for wood joinery. There'd already been a reinstatement tender agreed from another contractor and a loss assessor, and that had actually been agreed by a loss adjuster in this case. We were brought in to review and report as we often are, and we really didn't think that the damage warranted reinstatement. So I'll let Richard take over. What were your concerns, Richard?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I sort of alluded to it slightly earlier. The way we approach things is very methodical in that we try and understand the loss before we start making comment and producing schedules for this. Now, in this particular instance, it was given to us as a tender document for a repair to a fire-damaged bespoke timber manufacturer. On the initial inspection, some concerns of mine arose over the event because there was a fire from one of the machines, but actually having reviewed and requested the footage from the fire, we were able to determine that the fire itself was contained within the machine, and therefore from a heat perspective, it wouldn't have been able to reach the full height of the property. Now, within the tender, there was quotations or suggestions to replace the actual roof structure itself. Now, from what I could only see, there was partial smoke damage, but not necessarily heat damage. So I was of the opinion that they could have potentially been cleaned rather than be replaced. And there were a couple of aspects as well whereby there was some discoloration on the walls that was, again, supposedly caused by the actual fire itself or the smoke in this instance. On close inspection, I was able to identify that the walls had actually been painted over the black discoloration, and therefore it couldn't possibly relate to the actual fire itself or the smoke. So there's a couple of issues here where the fact that whilst we're asked to provide a competitive tender quotation, we're also concerned about the actual liability from an insurer's standpoint and the compensation that effectively would occur as a result of the reinstatement. In this instance, the insurance company decided they were actually going to cash settle the restoration side of it and agreed that there was no value in the actual reinstatement. So there was no damage to the property other than the fact that there was smoke sat on the surfaces.
Oh, thanks, Richard. And in this case, you really had to stick your neck out, didn't you? I think the actual, the claims director from the MGA actually came along because there was such a big disparity between what had been agreed and what we were suggesting.
Yeah,
and they completely agreed with your findings, didn't they? Happily for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when it comes to us as a tender, it's not necessarily we're not really asked for the liability, but I still feel obligated to provide an opinion on the liability, and having expressed my concerns, the decision was made that ultimately there was no reinstatement required.
Yeah, and that's it. We're not afraid to stick our necks out at all to what we believe. So we'll go on to the third case study here. So this is a different type of claim. This was a flood to an elder accommodation block, a large complex last year. I'm going to pass over to Darren, my colleague Darren Francis, to chat through this one because he was directly involved in the operational management. Darren.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I guess the key features for this site, if you've never been in a flood situation before, is that black water is extremely nasty to deal with in terms of its impact on people's homes and contents. So the flood was around 30 centimetres high throughout 15 self-contained living accommodation for elderly or disabled people. So we picked this claim up on day one, actually, the day the claim happened, and our major loss surveyor was actually on site 3 days just scoping out the actual damage and immediate need that were required to start putting the policyholder back into its pre-loss condition. So some of the issues we had 18 separate or 15 separate contents insurers to deal with, because each of the self-contained units had an elderly person in, and these elderly people insured their contents with different companies. We had lift shafts that were flooded and needed pumping out in order to allow access to residents and their relatives on the upper floors, which were not flood damaged. And we needed to ensure that any strip out and drying was started pretty quickly following health and safety checks to ensure we could start reducing both secondary damage in terms of mould. This flood occurred over the summer, and also start the drying process without hugely stripping out the property. So a really complex, it was a straightforward drying exercise, but a complex claim exacerbated with the number of tenants, the number of people with sort of health or vulnerability conditions, and a sort of success from our point of view in terms of we were able to get the drying, electrics, pumping out works and mitigation piece done very quickly.
Thanks, Darren. So the next couple of case studies are where we're applying our buildings knowledge, because one of the key sort of USPs of our surveyor-led approach is that all of our surveyors are from the building trade before they became Acumen surveyors, and then were trained to be members of the Chartered Institute of Builders. So they're applying their knowledge, and this really means that we can repudiate to a high level in what we do. So this case study here, this is a storm claim. So we were appointed to investigate the claim. It's a public house. It was a listed building, a very large rambling building. We were able to survey the entire roof with a pole camera, and it was a story of really poor maintenance. And I'll let Richard take over in his description here. Richard.
Yeah, thank you. So as Chris has advised, it was a graded building, so it was an old historical pub that had actually been remodelled into an 8-bedroom property. As a result of the remodel, what actually happened is they'd removed some of the structural timbers from the roof, and as a result of the weight of the stone tiles, because this was a historical building, what actually happened is the roof structure started to collapse and concave. As a result of that, the ceilings below actually ended up collapsing. Now they're lap and plaster, so it's a traditional method in a mixture of plaster and horsehair. Now it's extremely heavy, so when applied to laps over time, over a period of time, it is susceptible to collapse. Now this was reported actually as a water ingress from storm. My investigation of the roof determined that there was no technical defects or damages to the roof that could be considered resulting from the storm. In conjunction with that, I actually reviewed the weather records over the course of the event and was able to identify or determine that the wind speeds were only around about 25 miles per hour. Now, a structurally sound roof shouldn't necessarily be damaged by those sort of wind speeds. Typically something over 56 to 70 would be something that you would expect to damage. So in this instance, we were able to actually determine that the damages were historical, and we're actually able to evidence that as well. So not only do we suggest that there are historical repairs, we'll also advise as to why we think that, and give, I guess, insurers ammunition for against the actual decision to repudiate should they go ahead with that. So yeah, as I say, we try and encompass everything. So it's not just a survey and a quotation. We try and actually determine the approximate cause, and then hopefully highlight what we believe to be the resulting cause.
Thanks, Richard. So moving on to our last case study here. So this was also, this was a fire claim last year. It was also a public house. Now, the fire started in the kitchen area, which was at the back of the pub. It's pictured there where the seat of the fire was. It was really something that alarm bells immediately were set off when our surveyor visited. This wasn't Richard who visited this claim. Our surveyor Steve visited, and he, using his deep buildings knowledge. I mean, Steve was he's a gentleman in his mid-50s. He's got 30 years of buildings experience before he joined Acumen. He could see immediately that this building was not right. He saw that it clearly wouldn't have passed building regulations. It wouldn't have been given planning permission, the kitchen area. And you can actually see the melted poly roof there, which would have been a health and safety nightmare as well, dripping on the poor staff's heads within a fire. So on that basis, we absolutely recommended a repudiation. The insurer used our information, our detailed information, and actually chose to cash settle for their own decision, but to a much lesser figure, and it meant that we saved the insurer approximately £80,000. So as well as as well as looking at the fabric of the building and the nature of the loss, we've also very clearly got the customer care element as well, and we want to manage customer expectations at all times. So we're also really careful to identify any policyholder vulnerability and make sure that we handhold such customers through a claim. The last thing that we want is a customer to have to project manage their own claim. That doesn't happen with the claims that we work on, because each of our claims have someone like my colleague Richard on site who is able to make sure that everything that needs to occur is going to occur, and keep the customer very well informed. So in the case of repudiation, Acumen ensure that any decision is communicated sensitively and in clear layman's terms. We don't want to anything that we do to result in a customer complaint, unnecessarily. So we can lay it out, and our surveyor would make a relationship from the off with the customer, and would be able to manage their expectations when it comes to repudiation. In terms of reporting, we're really detailed with our reporting. So the screenshot there of all the photographs, just that excerpt, that was from one of our claims. There are actually 127 different photos on that claim. That's the kind of level of detail that we're looking at. So if we're looking at the roof of a building, as we were on this report, we're not just looking at the roof, we're looking at the condition of the inside of the building as well. We're looking at many different parts, and our report will absolutely reflect that, so that whatever finding we have, our MGA and capacity and loss adjusting partners can absolutely have the ammo to be able to back up our decisions. Okay, so we've seen what we can do. So let's look under the figurative bonnet at Acumen. So who are we? So we go back to 2010. So our managing director, Reza Mofidi, actually acquired Acumen Claims from CET Safehouse. At that time, it was a buildings repair network, and over the last 12 years, the company's been transformed into a UK-wide MCIOB surveyor-led professional services company. We're passionate about delivering outstanding customer experience with unrivaled cost accuracy. What we offer is a niche end-to-end claims management and buildings restoration and repair service, absolute focus on policy adherence, cost validation, cost control, and great customer service. We operate mostly at the moment in the London market. We serve capacities, MGA, TPAs and brokers, and also loss adjusters for both commercial and residential claims. And if we were going to boil our features down into to 4 words, they would be confidence. You know, we're very confident in what we do because we have the experience, we have the qualifications, but people also have confidence in Acumen as well. Clarity, we're able to give unrivaled cost control due to our deep buildings knowledge on site. We have capacity, resilience and surge flex as a result of the relationships that we have with our extensive repair partner networks. And certainty, you know, everything that we do adds up to a significantly reduced life cycle as well as reduced costs. What types of property do we do we specialise in? So we do the whole range of property, from standard residential to high net worth and ultra high net worth residential. We work on some housing association books. We do lots of multiple occupancy claims, SME, real estate, office parks. You know, we cover a lot of different types of property, and we're able to bespoke our services and our sort of claims philosophy to each of these areas by working closely with the MGAs or capacity partners. So what is an MCIOB surveyor? So that stands for a member of the Chartered Institute of Builders. Okay, so I've tried to illustrate that here. We can segment surveyors within insurance supply chains into 3 main groups. So on the left, in blue, you have the independent validation professional, or IVP, self-employed validators who are usually working on smaller sorts of claims or surge claims. And then on the right, in blue also, you've got chartered surveyors who are highly skilled, seen as the benchmark traditionally. They do manage contractors, but not in a sort of heavy hands-on way as Acumen do. And then in the middle, you've got Acumen MCIOB surveyors, which is a unique approach within the industry, and it's certainly gaining some traction as insurers realise, you know, that we can both save them money and cut down on claim durations. So they're directly employed. So people like my colleague Richard, they're all directly employed. They're not self-employed. They validate cover, they design the scope, and they manage contractor works through to completion. And the validation and the design is all done on the first visit, the first hit, as it were, you know, for that efficient claims progression. And what do MGAs want from property damage valuation? It's something that we always obviously hold close to us. We want to deliver what our clients want. So we feel that they desire close cost control, an accurate reserve, and real transparency when it comes to variations. That they want a clear alignment of insured losses to policy. They want a really efficient service and reduced claims duration. Customer choices is also very important as well. Giving such choices as cash settlement, which people like my colleague Richard can do. You want detailed evidence to support our assertions. You know, at the end of the day, you want a loss in your a reduction in your loss ratio, and you want to really be able to illustrate to, you know, capacities that they're getting a return on their investment. And independence as well. You want suppliers who are independent. You know, we really pride ourselves on our independence, and I think that that's reflected in, you know, in our results really. I mean, in 2021, we, you know, overall we repudiated something like 38% of claims. It sounds high, but it's true, you know. So we actually repudiate and cash settle a higher number of claims than we send to Acumen repair networks. So I think that speaks for itself in terms of our independence. So let's just quickly look at the traditional property validation and surveying model. So the traditional approach for larger losses is to appoint a loss adjuster to oversee. The loss adjuster will then rely on a chartered surveyor for their buildings intelligence, of course, whilst using their own insurance and policy skill sets to validate the claim. And then if the claim goes to fulfilment to contractors, then there is usually a contractor tender process, which can take some time. So this is the Acumen model. So just to explain what you're looking at here. So within this house of activity that I've illustrated, at the top is the start of the claim, at the bottom is the end of the claim, as the claim progresses. So on the left, we have Acumen Surveyor in orange, and on the right, we have loss adjusting model in blue. And the areas that are blocked out in orange are solely Acumen skill set areas, and the areas that are blocked out in blue are solely loss adjusting skill set areas. So as you can, and sorry, the areas that aren't blocked out but are described are where there is a joint skill set. So as you can see, we essentially do everything, nearly everything that a loss adjusting model does, with some exceptions. So we understand that claims have, contents in stock or loss of rent or business interruption element, and to cover areas like that, we actually employ internal adjusting skill set. So, for example, Darren Francis, my colleague, is a qualified and experienced adjuster, as well as being Acumen Ops Director. What does the Acumen model for MGAs look like? So, I think first of all, we're not new to the block. You know, we have a proven track record in the delivery of property damage surveying, scope design, claims validation, claims management, and also the management of restoration and repair. It's not something that we've just started doing, and we do have some long and very sort of loyal MGA customers who we're really happy to work with. At the heart of what we offer MGAs is our surveyor-led model. It's as I said, it's a unique proposition for managing property claims. Now, we get claims of many different sizes. We get smaller claims, we get significantly larger claims than 100,000 as well. But we feel that we offer the best value and the best return in the region of 10 to 100,000 K claims. So, as I said, our surveyors are all directly employed. They accurately validate the claim, cause, scope, and quantum, and they produce a detailed report for our MGA clients. And they can repudiate, and they can settle, they can cash settle claims, or they can send claims to fulfilment. And it's a really trusted option to send to fulfilment because we impose a scope on our repair partners. So, you know, it's very transparent in terms of you know, what our MGA clients know exactly what they're going to get for the scenario, because we've made it really clear in the report. There are no surprises. So a tender process isn't necessary, which saves an enormous amount of time. But, you know, we don't work in a vacuum. We absolutely don't, you know. So as I've said, we work with MGAs and capacity partners very much to agree philosophy, claims philosophy and policy interpretation. So we take a great care in that as we go through our relationship with MGAs and capacity partners. We want to make sure that we're, you know, reflecting exactly what the philosophy and interpretation you wish is. We do work with loss adjusters. They absolutely value our deep buildings knowledge on site and hands-on contractor management. And we also engage structural engineers as well. So particularly, for example, in scenarios where there might be a loss assessor who is asserting, you know, a certain scope, it's sometimes important for us to have an independent viewpoint to back up our findings. And we find that structural engineers, you know, 99% out of 100 would back up what we're saying because of our buildings knowledge. And also, last but not least, our restoration and repair networks. You know, we've spent many years building best in region partners, our networks, who are fully vetted and audited regularly with a national coverage. So I'm not going to read this whole page out, Acumen Model, benefits for MGAs and capacity. It's for your reference because I know you're going to be sent this afterwards. But, you know, I just wanted to illustrate that every feature that we have built into our surveyor-led model has a benefit, which is a hard and fast benefit when it comes to, you know, both cutting down on reserve, reducing loss ratio, improving, you know, return on investment, and also reducing customer dissatisfaction as well. You know, we're very clear on that. So, thanks for listening to me. I hope it has been interesting. Just to revisit our learning objectives. So during this webinar, we've learned about the relative features and skill sets of surveyor-led models versus traditional loss adjusting models with regard to approaching property claims in the region of 10 to 100k. Summarised what Acumen mean by surveyor in this context. Described how an Acumen surveyor approaches property damage on the ground, including managing policyholder expectations and working with other professionals. And also, lastly, explaining the rationale behind some of the cost and claims duration benefits we propose our surveyor-led property model delivers to MGAs, capacity and policyholders. Okay, thank you very much. Have you got any questions? I'll hand back over to Julia.
Thank you, Chris, and Darren and Richard. It's much appreciated. Very comprehensive, really interesting presentation, and I think you can never do better than giving case studies. I think everybody is interested in case studies, even if it's not your field of where you work. So thank you for that. I have got a few questions, but delegates are very welcome, as we said at the top of the meeting, to input more questions in the chat box at the bottom of the screen. Just an initial question, Chris, Richard or Darren, are you able to validate contents claims as well as buildings claims?
Darren, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely I can do. Yes, simple answer is yes, we can validate contents claims, and we will do that for any peril. So we have an extensive restoration network that will be rebranded and launched very soon under a different banner, but the triage of content, and by triage I mean the early action to identify whether the content item damage can be saved or repaired is really key, and yes, we can do that for both domestic and commercial.
Thank you for that. I've got a question. I don't know whether this is specific to your team that are currently employed with Acumen, or it's in the broader sense in terms of loss adjusters, etc. But how big is the team that you currently have at the moment?
In terms of total business, we've grown over the last few years to over 30 people, which is fantastic. Wow. I guess one of the things we should have highlighted, we do have a claim centre here in Annesley, which is northwest of Nottingham. So we're based here for our historical reasons. So that's where CET had originally set up the business 2010, and there's a pool of talent in this area that we tap into. So I manage a full FNOL to invoicing process within our offices here in Annesley, and our surveying team are scattered around the UK, are home based and work across the whole region, including Northern Ireland. So yeah, we have a mixed team of home workers and office workers to validate and fulfil the claims.
Thank you for that. You mentioned Northern Ireland there, but do you have a reach into the Republic of Ireland?
Yeah, we do. And actually, Richard has been over as well to Southern Ireland, haven't you? So we tend to not do too many claims over there. A lot of the Northern Ireland market is very different to the UK. For those who work in there, they'll know that there are long-standing adjuster-assessor relationships, and those claims are handled in a slightly different way to the Great Britain, Ireland. So, but yes, we do, and we will go to air if needed.
Excellent, thank you for that. Sustainability is a hot topic. How can you control the environmental impact when cash settling a claim? Interesting one.
I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, actually. I might need some clarity on that or some time to think about it.
I'm not sure you can have any control. I mean, your control in terms of reinstatement is probably a better way to answer the question when you're in control of both the mitigation stage and the repair phase, and you know the advent of flood resilient repairs, for example, or you know, reducing your landfill by stripping out or repairing more as an option is always our first port of call. But I think once you as an insurer have handed a bunch of cash over to your customer, the policyholder, I'm not sure you have any control at that point, do you? Other than to provide some options or alternatives for that customer.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. I suppose that's maybe alluding to kind of after settlement advice or support. Perhaps that's what that question is referring to. So, okay, interesting one. Thank you for that. Let me see what else we've got. Bear with me a moment.
Is it because everyone's on mute that they're not asking questions, do you think?
Our delegates are always a quiet bunch, so we get questions come into the chat box, as we said at the top of the screen. So I think somehow it's always easier in person. I think people are generally more willing to put up their hand. I have got another question. With the current inflationary pressure and supply chain issues, are your day one estimates coming under pressure, and how do you manage insurer expectations?
Rich, do you want to take this, or?
Yeah, so I mean, effectively, the way we are pricing things when it comes to schedule is based on current market value. So it's not the case where our line items are composite. So we will go on a labour material sort of structure. So what we're actually doing is looking at the value of the materials as is, and then we'll quote based on labour on top of that instead of composite rates.
I think just to sort of add some colour to Rich's answer as well, I think we update our rates every quarter. So we are currently working with NSR to make sure our rates are as close to realistic as they can be. So our day one reserves always try and sort of reflect what will be happening over the next 3 months. And actually the reserving philosophy is unique to every insurer. So some insurers will want you to reserve in a certain way, and others will want just a day one reserve as is. As a business, we have a process to manage variations as well, and sometimes we don't have DA on some of these larger claims where the liability approval needs to go to either the insurer or capacity, to the MGA or capacity, and that can take some time. And actually, it's one of the things we've noticed. If that approval takes 4 or 5 weeks, sometimes you may lose a contractor's ability to put that job in within a time window. So we have seen some delay caused by just claim process, which has caused an increase in costs. So and then you can run into issues with sums insured not being fit for purpose, or policyholders being uninsured. So yeah, it's a very simple question and quite a complex answer. So yeah, does that give you a bit more colour? So you know, we will always offer our clients best value for the quarter in terms of rebuilding cost or repair cost for a certain damage section, and then from there, you know, you try and get that repair booked in and completed, especially at the moment where, you know, some of the material costs are increasing by 10 to 20% on a monthly basis, and that could be cement or anything which is using power or timber, where Russia was a major supplier. You know, costs have increased substantially over the last few months.
You mentioned there actually about sums insured, which is actually quite the topic at the moment, given the current inflation rates. Are you seeing much, if anything at all, with regard to claims and the sums insured being, considerably lower than actually reinstatement or repair costs. Is that something that's already filtering through to you?
A simple answer is yes. I think, when most people set their sum insured as a domestic homeowner, you're trying to get the best price, aren't you? And unless your policy has unlimited, and some of our clients' policies, particularly for ultra high net worth, may have an unlimited building sum insured, so that isn't an issue. But certainly where, there is always customer intention to keep costs manageable, they may set a sum insured that is pretty close to the realistic value and could be caught out with these inflationary pressures. So we've certainly seen a number of claims where there have been some doubt around the validity of the sum insured and the application of policy terms to perhaps deal with that. So I think it is starting to filter through.
It's not at the point that you want to have the question raised about sums insured, is it? It's got to be at the point of underwriting, point of sale, as opposed to point of claim. It's as I say, I think it's definitely a hot topic at the moment.
We are actually happy to include those things in the report as well. So actually, we'll comment on the building sum insured should we feel it's insufficient. So the insurers or the underwriter are actually aware that's our assessment that is actually included in our reporting.
Okay, thank you for that, Richard. How do you manage surge capacity in terms of flood or storm events?
I think I'll probably take this one as well. Like most suppliers in our world, and I see one or two names on the podcast on the issue here who are in the similar space. That we do have a surge plan, which is tried and tested. So you look at the start of this year, we probably sit in a space where we will be subject to windstorm in probably any month of the year, flooding, burst pipe claims. And potentially even subsidence as well. So we can be hit at any particular month in the year. In terms of surveying capacity, we've got various ways we do increase that in terms of, we have a number of cross-trained staff who we can also incorporate. We are directly employed. We don't have a network of suppliers, so we very much offer that sort of process ourselves. We can best validate some low value storm claims, which is how we do that using technology. And in terms of flood and river or downpours, flooding, black water events, we have a network who are all again tried and tested and understand. You move to 24/7 to resolve issues. So yeah, we as Chris has said, we've been in this business for 10 years, and whilst we're not involved in the mass claim arena, which affords us some comfort, we still do have peaks and troughs during sort of weather events. So and we're sort of well versed at responding accordingly.
Thank you for that. You said you have your own staff and then you have a network. Do you employ your own structural engineers and party wall surveyors?
Not at this juncture. That's something we have a partnership agreement with, and we can provide the full end-to-end service. But again, that could be something we do in-house as well as we continue to grow.
Thank you. That was it for the questions that I had from our delegates. If anybody else does have any further questions, I'm pretty confident that Chris, Richard or Darren would be happy to answer them post-event. If our delegates wanted to get in touch, sorry, I didn't notice whether contact details are on the slide deck, but we can provide those if they're not in an email.
I can add them,
Yeah,
and send them to you, yeah.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, well, again, as I say, thank you so much to you guys and to Acumen Claims for your presentation today. It really is very much appreciated. As I say, case studies are always interesting for everybody, so that was good, and it was very informative, lots of information. As I say, we will send the slide deck out to all of those that have registered, not just that have attended today. So those on the call, if anybody doesn't have any questions, then please drop them through to the MGAA, and we'll pass those on to the chaps at Acumen. So thank you again to Acumen, Richard, Darren and Chris, and thank you to our delegates for joining us today. Don't forget, as I say, do register for our conference if you haven't already. I understand, Chris, you're going to be coming along to our conference, I think, on the 29th of June.
Yeah,
So,
next Wednesday, myself and Reza and MD are looking forward to the conference.
Right,
So,
yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, for organising it. And yeah, thanks from all of us at Acumen for those who attended.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.